Well, hello everybody. Hope you was able to get outside and enjoy this great day out. Today, Josh, Jonathan, and I were working on the boardwalk out on the church there, and so if you drive by, you might see some new boards that are nicely stained, and hope that we did a good job, and hope it'll last for many years. Now, I just want to give you a quick 30-second recap on what we talked about last week. Now, Moses was commanded by God to return to Egypt to free the Hebrews from enslavement by the Egyptians. Moses was given miracles and also the authority in his speech. Aaron was to be Moses' mouthpiece, and Moses would strictly perform the miracles, not Aaron. And God promised that the people that were out to kill Moses were all now dead, because if we remember, Moses killed an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew, and they were out to get Moses for that. So I want you to put your imagination cap on today. Imagine you are a king of a great nation, a nation that's been around for many years, many generations, and you're raised up hearing about these great kings in the past and all their achievements and the things that they've done. And you start to wonder, how am I going to make my mark in history compared to all these other great kings? How will future kings and future generations learn about me? Maybe you start to think, maybe I should strive to conquer the world, like Alexander the Great. Or maybe you should build a giant castle, like what a lot of kings do. They build a big castle to live at. So when people see it, they're like, oh wow, look at that castle. That's where the king lives. Maybe you decide to build giant buildings that'll be seen from miles and miles away, like the pyramids with the Egyptians. Or maybe you decide to build a tower that'd reach so high it'd reach up to the heavens, kind of like Nimrod in the Tower of Babel. That wasn't a very good idea, so I wouldn't advise doing that. But a king wants to make his mark in history, and he wants to make a mark that's better than all the previous kings. They want to one-up each other. And maybe they'll succeed, maybe not. Maybe some kings want to be nice rulers to their people. Who knows? But kings want to make their mark in history. So remember this as we start reading Exodus chapter 5. We're going to start in verse 1 and continue to verse 5. And it reads, And afterward Moses and Aaron came and said to Pharaoh, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice, to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and besides, I will not let Israel go. Then they said, The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Otherwise he will fall upon us with pestilence, or with the sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you draw the people away from their work? Get back to your labors. Again Pharaoh said, Look, the people of the land are now many, and you would have them cease from their labors. So the Hebrews were Pharaoh's slaves. They were his workforce that was going to build him a great big structures, a great kingdom, a big castle. And that would be his mark in history, the great things that he built. See, personally for me, when I think of Egypt, I think of these great big pyramids. Were the Hebrews building pyramids at the time? I don't know. And we don't know. All we know a little bit later is that they're told that they were building with bricks. It doesn't say what they were building exactly, just it involved bricks. Pyramids have bricks, so could be a pyramid. Who knows? But they were building things, building big things that required lots of work and lots of force. What I think is interesting, and I've always skipped over this, is Moses only asks for a 3-day journey into the wilderness. He doesn't start off asking to be able to be free and get their own nation, have their own people and own land. That's asking the big picture. He's asking something real small. Just a 3-day journey to go sacrifice and worship the Lord. Now, I was starting to wonder, is 3 days off too much to ask for? Like in today's world, in our world, when we have a job, typically most jobs allow at least 1 to 2 weeks off a year. Maybe you have vacation time or just need some sick days, or maybe you just need some time off work. 1 to 2 weeks a year, that isn't too bad. And so is a request of 3 days off really that big? No, I think that's a pretty reasonable request. But Pharaoh doesn't see it that way. Now I was just thinking, imagine if Pharaoh allowed them to go. allow them to go worship God for 3 days in the wilderness. Think of when they return. They'd be physically replenished, spiritually replenished, they'd be spiritually fulfilled, and just maybe when they return home, they might work a little bit harder. They might like Pharaoh a little bit more. They might work harder for him, do a better quality work. And especially if it's a yearly thing, they have something to look forward to. That's just me. But Pharaoh doesn't see this to be productive. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's 3 days off that you're not working for me. That's not beneficial to me. That's not putting more work into my kingdom, to my mark in history. Instead, that's subtracting 3 days from my mark in history, and I can't accept that. So if you can imagine, Pharaoh isn't really a boss that you would want to work for. Now, in today's world, we're not slaves. We get to be hired out for a wage that we agree with from a company or a manager or a boss to individual. So we establish what we're willing to work for, and that's what we work for. And a good boss today, or a good manager today, cares for his employees. And he wants to make the morale high. He wants his employees to work well with him and be like excited to go to work, or a pleasant time at work. I don't know if you can be excited going to work. If you can, that's great. I'm excited to go to work, but God's my boss. He treats me pretty good. Well, I guess Josh is my boss too, and the elders. But anyways, that's besides the point. I think a good boss really goes out of his way to make work as smoothly as possible. I don't think a good boss goes out of his way to make work harder. And I just don't think that's what a good boss does. Now, my own opinion, I think a good manager or a good boss gets down and does the real dirty work with his employees. I remember one time going to movie theaters when I was like 17, 18 years old, watching a movie. I don't remember what it was. And a good thing to do before you go to the movies is go to the bathroom before the movie. That way you don't have to get up and go middle of the movie, So I go in the bathroom, and inside there's a older gentleman who was cleaning the floors, and he was dressed a little bit better, and looked at his name tag, and it said whatever his name was and manager underneath. I was like, oh, you're a manager? He's like, yep, I'm a manager here. Can I help you with anything? I was like, oh, I just thought it was really cool that you're in here cleaning the bathrooms. That's a job I thought managers didn't do. He's like, well, no jobs below me. And I was like, oh, that's pretty great. And I thought in my head, that's a good guy to work for. He's in there getting dirty, cleaning the nasty bathrooms. I personally don't want to clean bathrooms. That's not a fun job. It's kind of a gross job, especially for a manager or a boss. So I had a lot of respect for that guy. And if you guys are ever a boss or manager one day, remember that advice. Whatever job you're willing to do, or whatever job you're wanting to put on others, you should be willing to do as well. So if you tell someone to clean the bathroom, you should be willing to clean the bathroom. Well, let's continue reading and see how this story goes. We're going to be reading verses 6 through 9. So the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters over the people and their foremen, saying, you are no longer to give people straw to make brick, as previously. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the quota of bricks which they are making previously, you shall impose on them. You are not to reduce any of it, because they are lazy. Therefore they cry out, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let the labor be heavier on the men, and let them work at it, so that they will pay no attention to false words. So Pharaoh's thinking here is to make the slaves, make the Hebrews work so hard that they'll forget about Moses' request and forget about Pharaoh denying that request. Because they're complaining, let us go worship God. He's like, you know what? If you have time to complain, you have time to work. That's Pharaoh's thinking. He's a really work-minded king. He wants things to get done. He wants results. And really, when a group of people are tired from work or tired from play, they don't really have enough energy to be complaining or get into trouble. If you have any little siblings or been around small children, I think you know what I'm talking about. A small child that's full of energy likes to break things or get in trouble or be a little mouthy, complaining. And a little child, or small child that can channel that energy into a game or some kind of work, they tend to be a little less complaining. I know at junior worship, we spend a designated amount of time running around and getting rid of some energy because kids have lots of energy, and the day just goes a little bit smoother when the kids run around and exert their energy and get a little bit tired before they start worship. Now let's continue reading, and we have a big section to read here, verses 10 through 19. So the taskmasters of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I'm not going to give you any straw. You go and get straw for yourselves, whether you can find it, and none of your labor will be reduced. So the people scattered through all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters pressed them, saying, Complete your work quota, your daily amount, just as when you had straw. Moreover, the foremen of the sons of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had sent over them, were beaten and were asked, Why have you not completed your required amount either yesterday or today in making brick as previously? Then the foreman of the sons of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you deal this way with your servants? There is no straw given to your servants, yet they keep saying to us, Make bricks! And behold, your servants are being beaten. But it is the fault of your own people. But he said, You are lazy, very lazy. Therefore you say, Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. So go now and work, for you will be given no straw, yet you must deliver the quota of bricks. The foremen of the sons of Israel saw that they were in trouble, because they were told, You must not reduce your daily amount of bricks. After reading that, I am glad I am not an Israelite or a Hebrew at that time, because that seems like a lot of work. I'm sure the daily quota of bricks was a very taxing thing, and there wasn't many bricks. And then going and finding your own straw does not sound fun to me. The foremen of the sons of Israel were the leaders of the Hebrews at the time. So there's Pharaoh demanding how many bricks to have, and he tells the Egyptian taskmasters. Then the taskmasters will tell the foreman of the Hebrews what job needs to be done, how many bricks to have, and then the foremen tell the Egyptians, or tell the Hebrews. It's confusing, I know, and I'm sorry. But that's who it is. So the foremen of the sons of Israel were the ones who were responsible for the Hebrews' productivity. And they were kind of like slaves in charge of other slaves is essentially what it was. And they were ones that were beaten when their task wasn't complete. So they were the ones punished. So, trying to gather my thoughts here. I got ahead of myself. But, so the people of the Hebrews there, they start to realize that Moses is making a request to go worship God and take 3 days off to go to the wilderness and worship. Wasn't a very good request in the eyes of Pharaoh. I'm sure they had their hopes up. They thought it was a great time, go worship God, have a little break of work and get spiritually fulfilled. Well, that isn't working out too well for them. So maybe they will start to turn on Moses. Maybe they'll start to turn on God even. But we're not going to get there in this study. And I hope that you come back and join us again next week. And we have a really good lesson next week, and I'm looking forward to. And believe it or not, I got a little bit ahead of myself and already completed that lesson. And I about shared that lesson today and skipped this one. So please join back next week, and we'll continue with this lesson. Y'all have a good one.